Nice. I think we got it. I think we got it. Sweet. So, a couple different things on the agenda. Did get to go see the F1 movie about week and a half ago, and overall, I would probably give it like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And it's kind of one of those movies where it's almost like the way that the movie was made is just as interesting as the movie itself because they were filming some of the scenes at actual Formula 1 events, and so the timing of it, I think there's a couple janky things about the movie, and I think that might be because they just had to fit in what they could while they were actually at those tracks filming the movie. But overall, I would give it a pretty good score. Like I said, it it's the same guy that I think it's the same guy that did the Top Gun Maverick movie. And so they really leaned into the realness of it. They wanted an authentic experience. And I would say that they really were able to capture that and bring it to the film. And typically, the way that movies are made, it's like me, I'm just kind of a casual fan of movies. I don't watch a lot of movies. And so the way in which they're made just kind of goes over my head most of the time. But to actually see some of the behind the scenes footage and to know that they were actually trying to bring an authentic experience, I think really helped it. And so it's really Brad Pitt. It's really I can't think of the other guy's name off the top of my head. The co-star that's in it, a younger guy. I don't think he's been in very many movies prior to this, but both of them are really good, and both of them did a lot of the driving, from what I understand. And Brad Pitt, from what I've heard, is a very good driver. So much so that McLaren actually let him I think they let him do a test drive in a slightly older model of an F1 vehicle a few days ago, or a couple weeks ago, I think it was. They brought him on to the track. I think they're in Austin, Texas, so it's the Circuit of the Americas, and they let him actually drive an F1 car. So that was pretty cool. If you actually go back, there's actually some videos of Tom Cruise talking about Brad Pitt and when they were filming. I think back in the 90s, that he said that they would go karting every single night after filming, and so Brad Pitt is a certified driver. It's kind of like Tom Cruise, like, "Hey, we're gonna do this for real. We're gonna make this Top Gun Maverick movie, and we're going to dedicate ourselves to the realness of it, and so you're actually gonna get to see us in the cockpit. You're actually gonna get to see us, in these planes and taking the real G-force." It's kind of the same concept, and I think that's what they were shooting for, and I think that they succeeded with it. And just overall pretty cool, and I really enjoyed it, and I think the action was pretty good, and I think it came at a really good time, especially for me, because I just started watching Formula 1 earlier this year, and so the sport is kind of new to me, and I think that the movie is going to help bolster the success and intrigue that people have with Formula 1. I think that people are gonna become more interested in it. I think people are gonna start looking into it. And I think for the longest time, and maybe it's just an America thing, because we're very NFL and NBA and NASCAR. And so maybe it's just kind of a niche thing to us because we don't really pay attention to it, because it is very European, and a lot of it, there's only 3 races: Las Vegas, Austin, and Miami. The rest of the races are spread throughout the world, but I think it's very much a European sport. And and so for me, it's kinda like, okay, just started getting into this and starting to educate myself on Formula 1 a little bit, and the movie comes along and produces what I think is an authentic experience, and that means a lot to me, because it builds my intrigue for it and makes me wanna watch it even more, makes me wanna understand it even more. And, Formula 1, just based upon what I have seen so far with the movie and with, the real live events and keeping up with the sport as it's happening week to week, I don't really care very much when it comes to other sports like NBA and NFL. I don't really care about the prep. And I know that there's some people that they really like shows like Hard Knocks that go into depth on the week to week training and practice of various different teams. And I'm sure that's interesting to people who are really hardcore fans of the sport. But to me, it doesn't really interest me. I'm just really interested only in the what's happening on Sunday. I'm actually just interested in the game and interested in the playoffs. I'm not really interested in the buildup to the race or the sporting event itself. With Formula One, it is actually pretty interesting the way that they formulate a game plan, the way that the cars are put together, the way that the cars are built, the way that they sit down and they all discuss strategy. They kind of tried to give us a taste of that in the Formula One movie. And so getting to see the prep work for it to me is actually really interesting, more interesting than some of these other sports that you would see where I would prefer just to focus on the actual event. And and it's even cooler for me just because I live in Indiana and Formula One is getting ready to bring Team Cadillac on board next year. And Team Cadillac, one of the headquarters for Team Cadillac is based here in Indiana. It's in Indianapolis, which is not too far from where I live. I think it's supposed to open next year, which I'm really excited about. So I definitely am planning on checking that out whenever it does open. And I don't really since I just started watching, I don't really have a favorite team. I don't really have a favorite favorite driver. I'm kind of just observing as a casual fan right now, but I think that I probably would have to be a Team Cadillac fan whenever they do get put into the series, the Formula One series, just because it's a American headquarters, Cadillac. I feel like I just should root for them. That feels right, even though that I don't even know. I don't even know when the last time a new team was introduced into Formula One, so I don't really know what the learning curve is. I don't know if newer teams typically have a lot of success or they struggle a lot in the first couple years. It a could be a huge gap in technology. So I don't really know how it's going to go, but having a team that's partly based in Indiana with Team Cadillac is going to be really cool, and I'm really looking forward to it. And so the movie, hopefully, maybe it'll bolster some intrigue amongst people that aren't too familiar with Formula One. I'm glad I got to go see it. I I really liked it. Really liked it. 7.5 to 8. Like I said, some couple janky things in it, but overall, it's like you're there for the cars and you're there for the racing and you're there for the driving. And I think those are the best parts of the movie. And I think they really follow through with that. And so I kind of have to give it a higher score. Also, the soundtrack is probably one of the better movie soundtracks that I've heard in a while. And I got a couple of the songs been playing on loop on my phone when I go to the gym. So soundtrack's pretty good, movie's pretty good, action's pretty good. The even the game planning, the whole behind the scenes, we're going to build a strategy. This is how we decipher what we're going to do on the track. All of that is really good and really interesting. And so, yeah, good stuff. I enjoyed it a lot. There was also, let me see. I wanted to watch there's been these viral clips of Jordan Peterson from the Jubilee debates that I wanted to check out. There's one in particular that I wanted to look at. So let me find it here. Okay, here we go. Let's
Are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause
Christian
I won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell
could be-
you.
You don't have to tell me. I was
No,
under the
it's
impression I
private.
was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video,
You're really quite something. You are.
aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him. Are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this?
Yeah, it's this one in particular that's really been circulating a lot. And I mean, it was only a matter of time before Jordan Peterson was really truly pushed when it comes to what he believes specifically. We're not going to talk about the external philosophical and moral implications of the Bible. It's a direct question. It's like, what do you believe specifically? And I really don't know specifically what Jordan Peterson, what he would classify himself as in terms of belief in God or not believing in God. Here's just what it seems like to me. He seems to be very, very focused on the underlying philosophical and moral implications of biblical scripture and not very concerned about whether or not those events that contain the moral implications are actual factual historical events. He kind of sidesteps the history of it a little bit. Like, we're not going to do a deep dive into biblical accuracy, and we're not going to do a deep dive into whether or not there are other examples of other texts that back up what the Bible is saying or that line up with what the Bible is saying. It's purely just the philosophical, it's purely just the underlying moral details of the stories that are present in the Bible. That seems to be what he is focused on. And and that's okay to a certain extent. I think a lot of people fall into that category, meaning that they read through the Bible, they look at the Bible, and they read some of the stories in the Bible, and they say to themselves, okay, I can kind of see myself in that scenario, or I can see the moral worth or the underlying moral message that is contained within the scripture, and I can see how I can apply it to my own life. But as far as me believing that it's an actual event, that these things actually happened, I don't really believe that. I think there are a lot of people like that. I think there are a lot of people that fall into that category. But for Jordan Peterson specifically, it's a little bit of a different story because he has on multiple occasions gone on various different shows where he will talk with other intellectuals and he'll talk with theologians or he'll talk with people that are very knowledgeable about the Bible, and he has developed this tendency to go out of his way to defend the Bible on numerous different occasions. And so, from somebody that's on the outside looking in, it would be hard to say, it's like, okay, well, how does this guy not know whether or not he believes in God? Or why does this guy not claim to be a Christian? Or does he claim to be a Christian or doesn't he claim to be a Christian? Because, again, he has on many occasions spoken of the importance of biblical values and defended biblical values. And seemingly that's what he's trying to do here, but I think it's causing a little bit of confusion because he will not just come out outright and say what he believes. And I can see also why this frustrates some people when they're just asking a simple question and they're looking for a simple answer. And going back to what I was talking about with the philosophical and moral implications, it doesn't really surprise me that Jordan Peterson might have a hard time extrapolating exactly what he makes of the Bible because listen to the other literary works that he talks about on a regular basis. What are the other books? What are the other sources of material that he often refers to and talks about with other people? Well, it's Dostoevsky, it's the Brothers Karamazov, it's Crime and Punishment, and those books are not historically accurate in the sense that those people, the main characters in those stories, actually existed and they were real people. Now, the stories are written into a specific period in time and maybe a historically accurate period in time, but the story itself and then the main people in the story, they didn't actually exist. And those events in those specific occasions are not historically accurate events. But he kind of sidestepped. That's not the point. That's not the point of those books. The point is, and the reason why they matter so much to so many people, and the reason why Jordan Peterson talks about those books so much, is because of the philosophical and moral implications. And so I think he's taken a similar stance with the Bible. And another example, it's really easy. This is what art, and oftentimes this is what art is when you watch movies or when you read fictitious books. A lot of times they might be allegories for a deeper underlying message. And so while those things might not have happened exactly the way the book says they happened, you can see yourself and paint yourself into that scenario. And for example, Lord of the Rings is one of the best books ever, one of the most famous books ever, one of the best trilogies ever made. The Lord of the Rings is not real. The Lord of the Rings is fiction. There's Middle Earth. There is no Middle Earth in real life. Those characters don't exist. There is no such thing as hobbits. There is no such thing as one ring to rule them all. But it is that story is an allegory of how people deal with burdens, the burdens that people carry, the burdens that people carry when they're trying to save the world, various different heroes. You also get to see characters like Gollum and Smeagol, which is not a real character that actually existed, but you can easily see, okay, this person, this character, Smeagol slash Gollum, represents greed. He represents addiction. And you can easily point to people in your life, or maybe you can point to your own life and say, okay, I understand. Like this is what greed does to you. This is what addiction does to you. It kind of mutilates you in a way, and it makes you ugly, and it makes you undesirable, and all of these different things. It completely controls your life the way that the ring controls Golem's life. And so you can draw real world parallels from fictitious works of art. And so I think that's the line that Jordan Peterson is on right now. I think he's kind of on the fence of it. I think what he is saying, or maybe what he believes, is that at this point in time in history, when I peer back through the scriptures and when I peer back through the events of the Bible, maybe I am skeptical on the finer details actually being true. But what I'm not skeptical on is the fact that the morality that's found in the Bible or the philosophy that's found in the Bible is accurate in terms of how it can be applied in your life today. How can it be applied in my life currently in the modern day? And so when you ask Jordan Peterson, do you believe in the Bible? He's like, well, what do you mean by believe? And so it kind of throws everybody for a loop, but he's broken it down into two separate things. There's belief in the Bible as a guide to how to live your life in the modern day. And so if there are parallels that can be drawn from the Bible to modern day, then yes, he believes in it in terms of a moral um, a moral foundation and a philosophical guide. And then there's actually believing whether or not those events and stories are true. And so it's like he might believe the moral implications. He doesn't necessarily believe, and he's skeptical of those events actually being true. And I still think he's trying to sort a lot of things out. And maybe it's just one of those things where it just takes, maybe it just takes time. Maybe it takes time for him to be, maybe he's latched on to the moral part of it, but he's having trouble with the realism of it. And so I don't know. People's journey to God can be different, and it could be kind of lengthy intellectually for him. But I think that's kind of where he's at. And I also think that there's a little bit of confusion on his part because anytime somebody presses him or asks him this question, it seems like he kind of defaults into this, well, that's really none of your business. It's really none of your business as to whether or not I believe in God. It's really none of your business. My relationship with God is none of your business. And I don't believe that that's correct. And something that people said all throughout my childhood and teenage years was that there's no such thing as a secret Christian. And part of the reason that you follow God, or if you are following God in a manner that's appropriate, then God's influence in your life is going to show through one way or another. It's not something that is necessarily to be suppressed. It is a very personal thing, a relationship with God. You know, if he's the all-powerful creator of the universe, and he created us, and he has understanding of us and who we are as human beings, then yeah, a relationship with God is very personal, but it's not really meant to be silent. It's not really meant to be secret. And so once I think his position will be more well understood once he comes to a place where he can firmly say, do I, yes, I believe in the moral and philosophical implications, and yes, I believe in the historical events. And then also, if he's in it, I think if he can do that, then maybe he can actually come forward and say, yes, I do believe in these things, and say it boldly, and say it loudly, and say it in a manner that's convincing. But I still think he's kind of on the fence about some of these things, and it gets him into trouble because when you when you remove the belief that the Bible is historically true, right? Let's just take the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, upon which all of Christianity hinges. That's the focal point, is the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. If you remove the belief and the idea that Christ was an actual person who actually lived, who actually died, and who's actually the Son of God, and actually rose from the dead, when you remove that cornerstone, Christianity kind of falls in line with all of the other philosophies, all of the other religions, all of the other ways of living and lifestyles that could be interpreted as true or false or good or bad. And I think that's more of an atheistic view. That's more of an atheistic view because yes, we're going to take the morality parts of the morality of the Bible that we like and that we think are beneficial, and we're going to use those things. But the things that we don't believe are true, or the things that we don't like, we're just going to discard those things. And this is kind of what Sam Harris says. If you listen to Sam Harris, who's you know, the famous atheist, he says, you know, if there are, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but this is just his general view on it, is he's saying that, well, if there's a portion of Scripture that is applicable to real life and modern day life, and it's useful and it's beneficial, and people can find comfort in it, and people can find value and benefit in it, then yes, then we can use that. But all of those other secondary things, and especially the things that we don't believe to be historically accurate, those things need to be set aside into something that's more tangible. And so Jordan Peterson's belief, as I'm just saying the way it seems to me, takes on a more, in some ways, takes on a more atheistic nature. And so that's kind of weird if if his viewpoint takes on an atheistic, um, a more atheistic viewpoint, because it seems to be more about utility than historical accuracy. Then he kind of falls into the category of an atheist. And so in that case, if you watch the debates, it's just an atheist debating 20 other atheists. So there is some, I can see the confusion. I can see why Jordan Peterson is kind of like, well, I don't really want to, maybe he hasn't made up his mind, maybe he doesn't want to say on the one hand whether or not he firmly believes in this, and then on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, you're on the other hand, from the atheist perspective, and in this case, these younger people that are debating him, I can see why they're kind of confused. It's like, why do you defend it so passionately? And then you defend it so passionately, and you seem very knowledgeable about these things, but then you can't even tell us whether or not you believe in it or whether or not you're actually a Christian. So it's just overall confusing. Hopefully, he gets over the hump eventually. I don't really know. It's actually kind of funny. I saw this meme. I saw this meme on Instagram, and it's Jordan Peterson. Here, I'll just pull it up here really quick. It's Jordan Peterson. Whenever you ask him a basic question about Christianity, let's do.
Inaccurate to assume that I couldn't exactly not say that is or isn't almost partially incorrect.
So you do know where he is?
On the contrary, I'm possibly more or less not definitely rejecting the idea that in no way, with any amount of uncertainty, that I undeniably do or do not know where he should and probably be. If that indeed wasn't where he isn't, even if he was, it wouldn't be inaccurate to assume that I couldn't exactly not say that is or isn't almost partially incorrect.
So you do know where he is?
On the contrary, I'm possibly more or less not definitely rejecting the idea that in no way, with any amount of uncertainty, that I undeniably do not know where he should and probably be.
I've watched that so I've watched that so many times over the last 3 or 4 days. And I was like, I have to put that in. And the first time I saw it was I was laughing pretty hard, and I've probably watched it like a dozen times. But that's how it goes. It's funny because it's true. It's funny because it's true. Unfortunately, that's what it's like. And honestly, that is just, if I had a general criticism, just beyond the whether or not he believes in God or he's a Christian. Beyond that, generally speaking, sometimes Jordan Peterson is just hard for me to understand. And part of that might be because I don't always know the literature that he is citing, or the overall philosophical viewpoint that he is trying to talk about or explain. But he gets into this rut of, well, it depends on what you think that I mean by believe, or what you mean by believe. And if I really believed it, then this is what I would. He just goes into this pit, and and you're kind of like, I want to follow you down this road because I want a definitive answer, but it doesn't sound like you're going to give me a definitive answer. So I don't know if I don't know if sometimes he's just dodging a little bit, or if maybe it is really just up in the air for him. So I don't know. I don't know. Also, you look back, I'm not a huge like Shrek guy, but I think that's Prince Charming. Prince Charming kind of looks like, who is it? Jamie Lannister. Jamie Lannister from Game of Thrones. That's who it is. So I'm probably not the first person to say that, but I just thought of that while watching that video. But yeah, excited for Cadillac coming to Formula One next year, and definitely going to be following it. Oh, I forgot to mention this. The trophies that were at Silverstone on Sunday were made out of Legos. Don't really know why. I just saw that on the internet and I looked it up. They were made out of Legos. I don't know if it's like metal or whatever it is, but the the podium finishers got a Lego trophy at Silverstone, which kind of funny, also kind of cool. Forgot to mention that earlier, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.